Hey, Rent to Retires, it's Adam Schroeder here for another episode, and I am joined today by Cody Lawson. He is an executive corporate analyst at Nevada Corporate Headquarters. You might hear us saying NCH a bit today, and that's who we'll be talking about. So, Cody, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to get in front of you and y'all's student base and everybody that works with you. So thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, you obviously, as I mentioned, you're with Nevada Corporate Headquarters. We utilize y'all a lot. I think y'all even set up Rent to Retirement for Zach. I mean, been with us a long time. Just before we dive into it today, we're going to be talking about kind of asset protection and all of that's all the fun things that people want to hear and talk about every single time that they're talking about real estate. It's kind of the behind the scenes, not sexy stuff. But just tell us a little bit about kind of, you are a real estate guy as well. Tell us a little bit about kind of your investing journey a little bit, just so people know that, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Sure, yeah. Well, I don't know if they'll ever know that, but I can still share with you a little bit more about me and share with everybody listening in and tuning in. But yeah, I mean my journey starts like most people, right? Just have a desire to want more. That 9 to 5 rat race just isn't enough. It's consuming too much time and not paying you back what you're worth. And so my wife and I back in 2010 decided to burn the ships, so to speak. We both quit our full-time jobs, dove into real estate investing. I found myself on a call that a lot of people have found themselves on, and that's talking to one of my now colleagues, Adam Kente, and he was getting me set up with a Nevada-based LLC to start my real estate investment company. And that was 15 years ago. And, over the past 15 years, my wife and I, we've started, I think, 4 businesses now, a couple of them in real estate, a couple of them non-real estate. We've done about 118 real estate transactions. And man, I'm always excited to talk to people about the boring aspects of what goes on behind the curtain, as you would like to say, to make sure that the exciting things stay exciting and that you end up keeping and protecting what you're building, and you're able to pass it on to that so legacy that everybody wants to have and pass on. So yeah, that's kind of me in a most recent nutshell, if you will. I it's nice to be on both sides of the coin. On the side that uses it in a daily basis in our own businesses, and then also able to help people get set up and protected for their business and whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah. So let's dive into it a little bit before we go too far into the weeds of, actually setting it up and this, that, and the other. When it comes to people's real estate journey, as they're getting into it, you hear about people setting up LLCs, you hear about people not setting up LLCs. In y'all's time with, NCH, what are the biggest threats? Are they, threats from the tenants? Are they threats from people suing the owner and getting access to the real estate? What's the most common way that people you see people either getting sued and hit with, or you see LLCs trying to get pierced?
Oh man, I it's unfortunately it's a big question. So the world we live in, right, is it's a very litigious society. And if you have rental properties and you're blessed to have tenants that are occupying your rentals on a regular basis, that just means you're also blessed to having a constant perpetuating threat of potential litigation, because it may not even be the tenant. It's the tenant has a friend over, and the friend walks up the stair and wobbles a little bit, and they trip and fall. And now it's the friend that wants to sue. It's not even the tenant. And contractors are big as well. We've had clients that, I'll tell you a personal story of one of my rehabs that I was doing. Oh man, this was probably back in 2015 or 16. And it wasn't for passive income, it was for active income. But I had a contractor that had been on 5 or 6 jobs. And this one particular job, it was getting towards the end of the day. And of course, it's almost beer 30. It's time to quit. We got to hurry up and get this job done, right? And so he was putting up some fascia board and wasn't going through the proper safety protocols. And he was running up and down the ladder with the nail gun in hand, trigger depressed on the nail gun. And as he was running up, nail gun was going down, leg was coming up, and he ended up shooting himself in the thigh with the nail gun, which I'm sure was not pleasant. Long story short, I didn't see him for the rest of that job, and I didn't see him for the 2 subsequent jobs. And then when I saw him again, I was like, "Hey, where have you been, John?" or whatever his name was. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, no, I've been around." And I was like, "Well, I haven't seen you at any of my jobs." "Oh, yeah, no, I asked not to be on your jobs." And I was like, "Well, any particular reason?" "Oh, no, no." And so he was very, kind of put off, and he wouldn't really tell me why he didn't want to be on any of my jobs. I think it was probably because he had hired an attorney to look into suing me. I found out probably that I was a Nevada-based LLC, foreign filed to do business in Texas, and they weren't going to win anything. So contractors are a big liability. Obviously, tenants are a big liability, and then just people in general, and those are the liabilities coming in on your LLC. And then of course we live and drive vehicles every day, and I'm sure it doesn't matter what market you're in. You hear an attorney on the TV or on the radio, "Interact, need a check. Have you been hit by a company car, truck, call, blah, blah, blah. We're here for you, your personal litigating attorney." And so now we have the threats that we get a personal lawsuit, and there is such a thing as reverse piercing. And they can go back into an LLC and force liquidation or foreclosure of assets. And so now you have a threat on your business from a personal suit. So really, we're kind of under attack under all angles from the business. Anybody that sets foot on the property has a potential liability risk for us.
Well, now that we've properly terrified all of the people who are investing in real estate, I want you to dive in. If you have a tenant, let's say, who decides to sue you for whatever reason, I mean, don't they know who owns the property? Especially like if you're self-managing or if you have a property manager, can't they just go to them and say, "Hey, who owns this property?" Or, "Hey, Cody, I know you own this property. I'm going to sue you." And aren't they already like inside the LLC or something like that? Or how do LLCs protect you when it is your tenant suing you or the property manager and they know who owns the property already?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that we get all the time. "Well, I live next door to my property and they know it's me." And it's like, well, that's fine. Just because they know you own it. Well, one, do they truly know that you own it? And two, do you really own it? Right. And so that's where the LLC comes in is, well, if it's owned by the LLC, well, then the LLC owns it, not you. The way we do it, it would be owned by a trust. It wouldn't even be owned by the LLC. And so when the attorney does their proper chain of command and trying to figure out who owns what, let's say the property's on 123 Main Street. They're going to say, okay, who owns the property on 123 Main Street? And most public record search, you can figure that out. It's going to come up, who's the owner on the deed? Well, it's the Main Street Privacy Trust. Okay. From an attorney standpoint, who's the beneficiary? Because that's who we're going to sue. Well, the beneficiary is this LLC. Okay. What else does that LLC own? Nothing. Okay, where was it incorporated, right? Maybe we can pierce the corporate veil, go after the owner of the LLC. That's where Wyoming and Nevada, the asset protection states come in, and well, now we can't pierce the corporate veil. And so they may have a very good understanding that at some level you control everything, right? To use the Rockefeller family principles, control everything and own nothing, right? How do we do that? Well, if our name's not on anything as the owner, then technically we don't own it. And they, just because they think we own it doesn't mean that they're going to sue us. Well, we can sue you because we think you might own it. Well, if I don't own it, you can't sue me because I didn't do anything wrong. Well, I mean, I guess you could sue me, but there's no attorney would take the case. So they have to kind of follow that chain of command of who actually owns the property. And that's why the LLC, especially if you're going to self-manage it yourself, right? Because you're going to be the one engaging with the tenant on a regular basis. They're going to naturally assume, well, it's your property, right? Yeah. And you've probably even said, well, it's my property. Okay, well, in theory, yeah, it is. But on paper, it's not, right? And so that's what we're after, is just removing ourselves, having that some people call it a shell game. Not really. It's just being prudent, right? That's what it's all about, making sure that we're protected in the long run.
90% of real estate investors miss key tax savings by overlooking deductions. Flipping houses, managing rentals, or growing your real estate empire? Make sure you've got experts in your corner, especially when it comes to taxes. That's why we turn to Nevada Corporate Headquarters, the experts who help us reduce taxes and set up our real estate LLCs. With 35 plus years of experience and 17,000 five-star reviews, Nevada Corporate Headquarters helps you manage properties across states, navigate tax laws, and protect your assets, all with a real estate LLC. Visit ncinc.com/RTR to schedule a free real estate LLC formation and tax consultation. Plus, receive a free guide to safeguarding your assets. Okay, so basically, it's because these people are working on contingent basis. They won't know who owns the LLC, how much is in there, and they don't want to take the risk of wasting a bunch of their time to potentially get minimal returns. Is that kind of the gist of what you're saying when it comes to the searching and seeing what does this LLC own? Nothing.
Right, from a lawyer's perspective?
Yeah, from a lawyer's perspective.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of those guys and gals, those litigating attorneys, almost every single one of those ads ends with, and remember, if we don't win, you don't pay, right? Because they're going to work off the contingency of we're going to make 40 or 50 or 60% of whatever we win. And if they're looking at it and they're going to win $0, or there's a 0% chance they're going to take that, right? Or if they're going to win $1,000, oh, okay, let's invest the next 24 months and 20,000 in hard court costs to win $500. No, right? So they're looking at that low hanging fruit, right? They want an ideal situation would be to find someone who owns it in their personal name, and they also have 5 other rental properties and a vacation home. Now, all of a sudden, the attorney's saying, okay, jackpot. We have something here. We can go to litigations. We can force liquidation of these assets to satisfy a judgment. And ultimately, their volume business, right? Low-hanging fruit. Let's attack something that we know we're going to get something of pretty, substance, right? They want substance is what they're after.
Yeah. So let's go into there's 2 ways that people get these things. And number one is, you buy it you buy it in the name of the trust at the beginning, right? Or in the LLC and move it to the trust. So there's that way. And then there's the other way where you buy it in your name and quit claim it over. Does that create can that create too much of a paper trail that leads back to you doing it that way where you quit claim it, or is there no real concern about doing it that way?
Yeah, I mean, they can only sue who the owner is at that time, right? Otherwise, any homeowner that's ever bought a house and then sold it, now they're liable for anything that goes on in that house in the future, right? That's just not how it works. So whether you close on it in the LLC and then transfer the deed over into a trust, or you close on it in your personal name and then transfer the deed over in the trust, when the lawsuit happens, it's going to be who's the owner on it right now, right? Oh, it's the trust, or it's the LLC, or it's you personally, right? That's what they're after, not who owned it last year, last week, 10 years ago. I mean, if that was the case, every wholesaler out there would be in trouble, right? Because a lot of times they're doing a double close. Well, they're on title for 4 hours or whatever, 24 hours. And, technically they could be up for a lawsuit 20 years down the road. And so, yeah, it's whoever's on there at the time that lawsuit starts.
Okay. So let's attack this the way that somebody owns, let's just say 2 or 3 rental properties. Let's start with them all being in one state. What's their first step? If you've got, I've bought 3 properties, they're all in, Missouri, let's say. What do I do?
Yeah. So ideally you'd want to get the best mortgages, right? So you've probably closed on them in your personal name, so you could get, the best mortgages with the best rates and terms you possibly can, holding them in your name. Well, you want to get them out of your name as quick as you can, right? And so if we were doing this, so this is just how NCH does it. We set up right now, if someone doesn't live or do business in Nevada, even though that's where we're at, we're almost exclusively setting up Wyoming-based LLCs. In our opinion, they are just a little bit better than Nevada for about half the cost when it comes time to renew. And so it would be a Wyoming-based LLC, and then we would initiate a process called foreign filing that LLC to be able to do business in Missouri, which is where your rental properties are. So now it's a Wyoming-based LLC, foreign filed to legally do business in Missouri and set up and registered with Secretary of State's office there in Missouri as a Wyoming LLC. And that's how the corporate laws of Wyoming are able to track you to the state that you're operating in. And then that's a foundational piece, right? We like to make sure that, it's easy to manage, cost effective to grow and build a portfolio while keeping adequate asset protection for yourself and separation between those properties. And so we'd have that one LLC, and then each property would go into their own land trust. So if you look at like a 1-to-1 ratio, one property per one land trust. So in this example, you'd have 3 land trusts, one for each property, and they would all name the LLC the lifetime beneficiary, because in the event of a lawsuit, the beneficiary is who would take that lawsuit. The beneficiary takes all the good with all the bad. So in an example like this, you would have one LLC, so that's one set of renewal fees, one bank account, so the bookkeeping's super easy. All 3 of the rental properties are going to write checks to one bank, which is nice. And then you keep your property separation because, well, in the event of a lawsuit, when that attorney does that chain of command, he's going to see, okay, well, this property on 123 Main Street is owned by the Main Street Privacy Trust, and the beneficiary is this LLC that owns nothing and is incorporated in Wyoming. What they don't see is that that same LLC is the beneficiary of 2 other trusts that both own property. They can't see that. It's nowhere on public records. You can't go from the beneficiary and then work your way back to who they the beneficiary are, or of, I should say. Man, my diction was horrible on that. But anyways, you can only go from the trust to the beneficiary, not vice versa. And so you maintain proper separation between your properties. And then again, it gets to that point of the attorney saying, okay, well, even if we win the lawsuit, it's Wyoming LLC. They didn't commit deliberate fraud. We can't pierce the corporate veil. And there's charging order protection. So even if we win this lawsuit, we're never going to get paid and we're not going to get the property. What's the point? We don't work for free, nor should they. I mean, nobody should work for free. Anybody with a job would appreciate that paycheck that comes in, right? They don't like to work for free. And so that way we have the ease of management because it's one LLC, one bank account. The land trusts don't have bank accounts. The land trusts don't have renewals. It's a very simple one and done. Heck, when we set the land trust up, we even do the deed transfer paperwork. And in most states, to something that you mentioned earlier, it will be a quick claim deed. Some states it won't be. Like if it's in Texas, we don't do quick claim deeds in Texas. We do a deed in lieu of warranty, but that's just part of knowing the proper deed transfer for the state that you're buying your rentals in.
So if it's not, if the land trust isn't a part of public record, how does that work? Because it seems like it needs to be a part of public record, or else you still own it, or the LLC owns it, right? Like, how does that work?
The part that's not part of the public record is that the LLC is the beneficiary of that trust, right? So when you're looking at the LLC, it's not going to say, hey, I'm an LLC and I'm the beneficiary of X, Y, and Z land trust. All you see is I'm an LLC and I don't own anything, but I'm incorporated in Wyoming and registered to do business here. But when you look at the trust, when the trust documents, it says who the beneficiaries are. Oh, it's this LLC, right? So you can only go from the trust to the beneficiary. You can't go from the beneficiary back to the trust without knowing that the trust exists and who the beneficiary is in the first place.
Okay.
So that's the portion that's not part of public records.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And you said the trusts are just a one-time fee. There's no renewal, all of that. Do you need a registered agent for that, for each trust, and you have to pay monthly, or?
Nope. Trusts are very simple. It's just a one and done. Set it up, transfer the deed into it. You have your beneficiaries. We always recommend the lifetime and death time beneficiaries. Lifetime, obviously, your LLC. Death time, your revocable living trust. So that way, along with the rest of estate planning, right? Your rental properties automatically go into that revocable living trust when you pass away. That goes to your heirs, and then you get all the benefits of no probate. And that, another cool thing about the land trust, for individuals that live in California, right? They have this extra corporate tax that they have to pay for every business they have or every LLC, $800 minimum. And so land trust is not a corporation, it's a trust. And so you don't have to worry about that extra $800 corporate tax for every land trust. So again, keeping your costs at a minimum while you're building and growing this portfolio.
Yeah. I know whenever you have LLCs, the big question is basically how much equity are you willing to put into the LLC before you want to start a new one? Is there a similar thing with the LLC and land trusts where you want to say you don't want to have 40 land trusts for one LLC, or is it such that because of the protection, there's really no concern that people need to have with having one LLC be the beneficiary for potentially dozens of properties?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, again, it's people's threshold, right?
Right.
The the old adage of you want to have whatever $1 million or $2 million, no more than that per LLC, was because of when an attorney does that search, they're going to see all of that, and they're going to say, oh, there's 5 properties worth whatever 200,000 a piece. Now, with it being in the land trust, they don't see all the other land trusts, so they have no idea how many other properties are there, whether it's 1 or 40, right? With that said, if a lawsuit comes down on that LLC, right, which you would know in advance because your trustee is going to notify you. Well, as soon as you get notified by your trustee, you're going to want to start moving stuff around, right? The lawsuit hasn't started yet, so you legally you can move LLCs or beneficiaries from wherever to wherever, as long as there's no litigation starting or pending. And so you're not violating anything by doing that. So it just depends on, if you were not on the ball, right? Then yeah, I mean, if you're someone who's like, well, I just want to set it up, so if something happens, whatever, there's going to be 5 properties that would be subject to any potential lawsuit in the future on that LLC. I don't want to have to deal with moving stuff around. Well, then yeah, maybe you'd want to go by the same adage of put X number of value worth of properties. So let's say 5, right? So put 5 properties, 1 in each land trust for that one LLC. You can do a lot more than that, though.
Okay, that makes sense. So theoretically, if you were concerned, you could kind of set up 2 LLCs, put all of the land trusts into one, and if you were worried, say, oh, I think Cody might be about to sue me on 123 Main, I just switch the beneficiary of 123 Main to my kind of vacant one, and then I'm protected.
Yep, you could definitely do that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So what are some of the most common misconceptions you're having to deal with whenever you talk to investors on the phone day in and day out about their thing? Like what are the most common things you hear that you're just like, no, this hasn't been explained to you clearly?
Uh, so there's 2. One revolves around taxes, right? They're like, oh, well, my CPA says that I shouldn't have my LLC, and I don't have to deal with taxes, and it's like there's multiple ways to tax an LLC, right? So not that their CPA is wrong, it's just that their CPA may be thinking something different than what's actually going to happen, right? And so a lot of times the CPA will say, well, you lose a lot of your benefits by putting those things into an LLC or having them flow through an LLC. Well, there could be truth to that, right? The old CPA answer is, well, it depends. And it does, because if it's taxed as an S corp, well, then they're right. But if it's tax disregarded, well, then they'll see no change in taxes because everything will set right on their personal 1040 on that Schedule E, which is probably where it's sitting now. Because from a tax perspective, there is no difference. You just gain the asset protection and keep the taxation the same. So there's seems to be confusion around taxation when it comes to LLCs quite a. And then because Wyoming over the past decade has become so popular, a lot of people are using what they would call a holdings model, where I buy or I set up a Wyoming LLC, and then I buy 3 properties in Missouri, and I set up a Missouri specific LLC for each one of those properties. So now my properties are protected from each other. They're protected from me. The Wyoming LLC owns the Missouri LLCs. Well, that's fine and good. Do you get your adequate protection? Well, yeah, because in the event of a lawsuit, they're going to hit Missouri, and if they pierce the corporate veil, they'll hit Wyoming. You're protected. Is your property protected? No, because Missouri doesn't have charging order protection, so they could just force liquidation of that one property. Okay, so you lose a property. You still have your other two because they're in different LLCs. But then you also have 4 LLCs instead of just one. So that's 4 bank accounts. You got to make sure that each property checks are going into the right. And so the bookkeeping becomes very cumbersome. And if you live in California, you got 4 LLCs instead of one. So that's 4 times 8 every year you're paying out in taxes. And so it becomes, not very cost effective. And so there are some of those pretty common things that happens. And then people will just set up a Wyoming LLC and think they're covered, but they don't foreign file it to do business. So if it's sitting in Wyoming, but you own rental properties in Missouri and you've never filed that Wyoming LLC to be able to legally do business in Missouri, well, in the event of a lawsuit, they'll just sue you personally because your LLC is not set up to do business there anyway. So who else are they going to sue? And so those are kind of the 3 biggest misconceptions. Well, I have a Wyoming LLC, so I'm protected, but they didn't do anything with it, and they did it all wrong. So that happens.
Yeah. So you mentioned not needing a bank account for the land trust. So whenever I own those properties in Missouri still. I have a property manager for them. Where do I tell the property manager to send the money? Whenever I fill out that 1099, is it just the Wyoming LLC bank and it never flows through the holding company or the land trust at all?
Yep, exactly. So ABC LLC, is who they're going to write their checks to on a monthly or quarterly or however they're paying you out. And 1099, all that's going to go to the LLC. Um, the land trust has a pretty simple gig. All it does is hold the deed to the property and say that person is the beneficiary. So take everything up with them. All the good and all the bad goes to that LLC. Oh, I just own the property. I don't know anything else. It's one of the old "I just work here" type of sayings. That's kind of the way the land trust is.
So are land trusts state specific, or are they just kind of does it work in every state?
Great question. Yes, they are state specific, and that's one of the reasons why there are no foreign filing fees with the land trust. They are state specific, and no, they don't work in every state. So this is almost a perfect system. There are 2 states that it does not work in. So if you're buying rentals in Oregon, you're just going to want to put those inside of an LLC. It does not work in Oregon. And in Pennsylvania, you can still use them, but Pennsylvania sees them as a form of a business trust instead of an actual mini living trust that they truly are. And so you can still put your properties into the land trust. All that stuff still works. But one of the benefits that you get in many states is you don't have to pay like transfer tax, like Florida, right? Every time you move a property, there's a transfer tax you have to pay. Pennsylvania has it as well. And by moving it out of your name or an LLC into the land trust, historically speaking, in PA, you didn't have to pay that tax. Well, now they say, yes, you still have to pay that tax. Yes, there still is a reassessment of tax value. So you lose out on a couple of the benefits. You can still do it. You just know that you're going to be paying that tax. It's no different than if you moved it into an LLC. You'd still be paying the same tax.
Okay. That sounds easy enough. I mean, when there's only 2 states where things could go wrong there. So does every state though have the same well, I guess, is there protection that the like legal protection that the land trust gives you, or is it just because it flows to the LLC that's your name protection?
Yeah, so the LLC is your legal protection. Really, the land trust, you get some anonymity from it. Um, you get some cool protections from like the due on sale clause, for example. So if you are closing on properties in your personal name, because you get better rates and terms that way instead of a DSCR loan or DSRC, whatever it is, commercial. Yeah, DSCR loan. So you can close on your personal name and then transfer the deed into the land trust. And there's federal protection that dates back to 1982. There was an act that took place called the Garn-St. Germain Act. Basically, anytime you transfer the deed of a property into a qualified form of inter vivos trust, the banks cannot invoke their due on sale clause. So land trust is a qualified form of inter vivos trust, just like your revocable living trusts are. And so it's a nice little workaround to a due on sale clause. Whereas if you transferred it out of your name into the LLC, well, there's a chance they could initiate that due on sale clause or restructure it into a DSCR type of a commercial loan.
Okay. So I own an LLC. I'm the member, but I've got a registered agent in Wyoming.
The manager.
Yeah, I'm the manager. Yes, sorry. So I'm the manager, got the registered agent. I buy that property in Missouri. I set up a land trust. Who signs? Do I sign to get it into the LLC? Who signs the land trust paperwork to make the LLC the beneficiary? And then does me, if I have to sign it, does that ruin anything?
Yeah, so obviously you're going to have a qualified attorney set up the land trust for you. That's one of the things that we do, but any good legal type attorney would be able to do that. So the attorney draws up all the paperwork. They go through the trust documents with you. They help you name the players in the trust. You'll still have a trustee and the beneficiary, both lifetime and death time. And so they help work through all of that, do the paperwork for you. And then we do the deed transfer paperwork as well. So in most states, quitclaim deed, you'll still physically have to sign that deed transfer with a notary and get it filed. But other than that, yeah, it's going to be a qualified attorney doing all that for you.
Okay. So when I come to NCH and y'all set this up for me, how much work am I doing? Let's brass tacks it. Are we talking about I have to get a bunch of paperwork and hand it over to you? Is it just I say, Cody, make this happen, and it happens? Like how much work am I doing?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is getting your deed paperwork out of whatever closing doc file that you have and sending that over to us. That's probably the most work, and then physically signing it with a notary. Other than that, everything's pretty automated. We have our legal team walks you through everything. You look at it. They do a first draft for you and make sure that you like the way everything looks, or, oh, no, we misspelled this, or, okay, fine, we correct it. Give you the second draft. So you might spend an hour and a half total in editing and making sure all the right people are in the right places on the paperwork, and sending us the deed so we can get that transferred over out of your name into the trust. That's it. That's pretty simple. And the LLC is even less. The LLC, you're looking at, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes. And then the attorney does the rest.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Cody, I really appreciate you coming on and joining us and talking to us about this. NCH, like I mentioned, company we've worked with for years. Like I said, they help set up Rent to Retirement. We've got some special goodies that there's a link in the show notes that everybody should check out. Got some good stuff going on with them. Cody, is there anything you want to leave people with as we wrap this up?
No, just know that, if you've bought a bunch of properties in your personal name, did you screw up? No, you have properties, right? They're just in your name, and that can be fixed. And so if you need help with that, we're obviously here for you guys.
All right. It's like Berenstain Bears. It's never too late to correct a mistake. So,
right.
All right. Well, Cody, thank you so much for joining us. If you need some properties to put in your portfolio so that you can put them in your LLC with NCH, you can head on over to renttoretirement.com. That's renttoretirement.com. If you have any questions for Cody that you want us to send his way, you can send them to podcast@renttoretirement.com. Or if you want to tell your story, go ahead and email us there and let us know, and we'll get in touch with you. And you might see yourself up on the YouTube video or hear yourself on the podcast someday. So that's podcast@renttoretirement.com. Really appreciate the time y'all spent educating yourselves today. Don't forget to check NCH out in the website link in our show notes. And we'll talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.